Obviously, lots of talk today about Debenhams and what it means for the high street, how our town centres are changing, how they are going to be repurposed after originally being built around these big department stores. Now, I'm lucky enough to have spoken to Graham Soult earlier on today, who is a retail expert and consultant at Canny Insights. And I asked him how much of a loss is Debenhams to the high street.
Well, it's a big loss. It's one of the biggest retail collapses we've seen since the days of Woolies, of course, and it's resulted in over 100 stores closing around the country, and it's deeply sad because I think some Debenhams stores clearly were in trouble and unprofitable, but equally there were some stores that were doing okay and making money. But it's a great shame when a whole company collapses and the whole estate has to go, even though in some places it was still a viable store.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm still shocked to the core when Woolies closed and we lost the pick and mix aisle, to be honest, Graham. So I don't know how this is going to hit me.
Well, but it's true, and I think any loss of a long-established big name does hit people. You hear all the same stories of people who say, "Oh, it's so sad that Debenhams is closing," and yet, if you dig a bit deeper, you find that actually they probably hadn't shopped there for a while, and that obviously is the core of the problem. It's partly that these brands haven't been as well supported as they were in the past, and that's partly because of the companies themselves not offering us what we want, but equally in the case of Debenhams and others, it's quite often that the way that these companies are bought and sold is a problem too. The way that they get loaded with debt, so it's not always all about trading performance and all about online hitting these things. Sometimes they can be all the corporate goings on behind the scenes as well that also have an impact on the viability of these chains.
I was going to ask Graham whether it was actually the store's fault, as you mentioned there, maybe not offering the right sort of things, or whether it is a change in consumer habits and, whether it's, in fact, the perfect storm, maybe a mix of all. They're not offering what we wanted from them, a change in consumer habits going more online or shopping locally, and then, obviously, the pandemic, which has had another huge impact on our shopping behaviour.
Yeah, it's a bit of all those things. I keep making the point that certainly the pandemic, isn't the cause of the demise of Debenhams and Arcadia and the like, but certainly it has helped to push, already struggling businesses, over the cliff. And I think if you look at what's happening in the retail landscape, businesses really have to be at the top of their game. They have to, offer consumers something that is really appealing, whether that's in terms of value, and a store like Poundland is doing really well in that area, or indeed in terms of quality and convenience. And Next, for example, is doing well in that. And I think Debenhams' problem is partly that it had got a bit boring. And it's always a real challenge if you have stores all over the country and you go into any Debenhams and it's pretty much the same as any other. And that, I think, is part of the problem. And it's why I keep making the point as well that the overall concept of department stores, isn't dead. It's just the department stores, as we often see them, have got very samey and very dull. And actually, if you go around and find some of the independent department stores that are still around, some of those actually are doing quite well because they're rooted in their communities, they understand the customers, and they're very tailored to that local audience.
So actually, there may still be a place for department stores on the high street. They just need to up their game and think about how to tap into their consumers better.
Yeah, I've worked with some independent department stores. There's one that I know of that has just opened a store down in the south in the last few weeks. So it's not all doom and gloom. It certainly isn't a case of having these vast stores full of racks of clothing. It's much more about mixing up things like different kind of beauty treatments and lovely restaurants and making it a lot more experiential, and those kind of smaller, more boutique-y independent department stores certainly have a future.
Absolutely. I think the key word was experiential there. So you're not just going into a bland shop that, will be full of clothes and really cheap suitcases, which is, what I used to go to Debenhams for, basically. However, you're going into a store because it's got something that draws you in anyway, and you kind of buy things off the back of that as well.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds a bit obvious, but I keep arguing that actually, if you're going to make a success of being a bricks and mortar or high street retailer, you have to try and tap into all those senses, all the emotions, and do things that you can't do on a smartphone. Online shopping and kind of out of town retail parks are brilliant, but they don't excite us in the way that being in a lovely, quirky, distinctive, exciting store is.
That's Graham Soult, a retail expert and consultant at Canny Insights, chatting to me earlier about the decline of Debenhams and what it means for retail going forwards. Obviously,